So let's get started lying down today. Get comfortable. You can use a blanket if you need to pad your hips or your head, and just have your balls, your single ball or your noodle or your toy ball accessible. Maybe also have a block within arm's reach. And then go ahead and plant your feet about hips width apart or even slightly wider. Point the toes forward and then wiggle them around a little bit, stretching the toes, pull them back towards you, and then even point them away a little, lowering the feet down finally to connect between all four corners of the feet, feeling the support of the floor of the earth. Bringing your arms off to the side, turn the palms up in our gesture of receptivity and acceptance. And if it feels right, close your eyes. Turn your attention inward, settling in. Allow for that natural external force of gravity to help ground the body, particularly the space of the sacrum and the hips. Allow that area to get heavy and rooted to the floor. And just begin to take several rounds of conscious, deeper breath. Now making your transition into this body and into this moment. And letting go of the rest of your day, the rest of the weekend, or last week even, so that you may fully arrive here and now in this present moment with your breath. And just notice how you feel. And begin to direct your breath to any parts of the body that feel tight, heavy, not just the hips or knees, but anywhere. And it could be around the heart, shoulders, neck, even in the mind, if there's a lot of congestion, thoughts, worries, concerns going on in the mind, you can direct your breath there. Beginning to use this breath as a tool to help release. Just let go of all those sensations that aren't going to serve you in this very moment. Relaxing body and mind the best you can. Then moving into our pelvic clock exercise. Those of you who practiced with me last month might remember we did this exercise to cultivate deeper awareness around the pelvic, hip, and lower back region. This exercise is really simple, small movements of the pelvis. Really lets you know that the pelvis, the hips, and the lower back all work together in synergy. They all move together basically all of the time. But now we're going to combine breath with that movement. Just pretend there's a clock lying on the pelvis. The 12 o'clock is closest to your belly button. The 6 is down towards the groin. And then the 3 is on the left side of your pelvis, and the 9 is on the right. And begin your diaphragmatic breathing. And as you breathe deep into the belly, you're going to tilt the pelvis down towards 6. And exhale out through the belly. Tilt the pelvis slightly up towards 12. Creating this gentle rocking. Focusing on breathing into your abdomen. Breathing into the belly. Tilting the pelvis slightly down towards 6. Then breathing out, exhale. Tilt the pelvis back towards 12. Good. And keep it moving. Deep, slow breath. The slower, the better. Really expand the abdomen with your inhale. You'll feel the lower back lift away from the floor. And then with an exhale, tilt the pelvis back towards 12. Empty out completely. And notice the lower back lengthens and grounds down towards the floor. A couple more. Deep inhale into the belly, tilting the pelvis down. And slow, steady exhale, tilting that pelvis back up towards 6. Good. And now moving the breath all the way into the 3 main parts of your diaphragm. So keep tilting and moving. Inhale into the belly, the ribs, the upper chest. Then exhale through the chest, the ribs, and the belly. Tilting the pelvis, grounding down through the low back. Good. Full 3-part breathing. Moving in synergy with your pelvic clock. Just be aware of how the lower back and the hips feel. Any sensations in the legs. And at the end of your next exhale, empty out completely. Just take a pause for a moment. And then with an inhale, begin to rotate the hips towards 3 o'clock, down towards the 6. And with an exhale, rotate to the right to 9, and then back up till 12. You got it. Inhale, rotate the hips to the left, and then down towards 6. Exhale, circulate all the way back up to 12, grounding down through your lower back. 2 more times in that direction. Inhale. Exhale, bring it in around and back. Last one. Inhale, rotate it around to 3, 6. Exhale it back to 9 and 12. Pause here, opposite direction. As you deeply inhale, rotate hips to the 9, down to 12. Exhale, rotate hips to your left, up to 3, and then 12. Good. Couple more rounds. Small movements of rotation, just focusing on your breath and sensation of lower back and hips and pelvis. Last round. With an exhale, bringing the hips back to the left, and then all the way up till 12, pelvic tilts back, and then just relax. Take a deep inhale in through your nose, pause at the top, then open the mouth and exhale it out. Nice cleansing breath. One more. Inhale into your belly, ribs, upper chest, pause at the top, then open your mouth and exhale it out through your mouth. Let it go. Good. And then reach for one of your blocks. If you don't have a block, use a blanket that's folded up thick and place it under your sacrum, flat surface area. So the block has to be the wide way, the wide position, on the shortest height. Passively resetting sacroiliac joints here in the lower back that might have shifted around. Let's allow for that natural pull and weight of gravity to ground the body on top of the block, and just relax muscles. Release arms back off to the side. Find your breath again, the 3-part breathing, harnessing these 3 main diaphragms of your body, of your upper body, to optimize pressure throughout various systems. expanding the abdomen, the ribs, the upper chest as you inhale, and relaxing the chest, the ribs, and gently, gently contracting the abdomen at the end of your exhale. So creating this organic wave of breath. Also regulating the nervous system and rather quickly upregulating your relaxation response. Keep that breath moving, and with your next inhale, slowly hug the right knee in towards the body. As you do so, keep the lower back evenly grounded down to your block or to the blanket, and keep breathing. Good. Slowly begin to straighten the left leg on the floor, flex the toes back towards you. Breathe into the stretch along the left hip flexor or the inner thigh. Now breathing into your whole body, using your breath still as this wonderful, powerful tool to help move that oxygen-rich blood into these areas of congestion, muscles that feel tight. Good. Keep breathing and just begin to make small circles with your right knee. You can use your hands to guide it. Just gentle small circles to help lubricate the right hip joint. Still staying grounded down evenly onto your block or blanket. Then go in the opposite direction. Good. And coming back to neutral. With an inhale, extend the right leg up towards the ceiling, flexing the right toes back down towards you. You keep a soft bend in the knee. And gently stretching the inner thigh, the hamstring, the calf muscle. And then point and flex the right foot just a few times. Beginning to move some water and blood into these smaller bones of the ankle and feet. Rotate it out, rotating in one direction and then the opposite direction. Good. Continue to deeply breathe. With your next exhale, release the foot all the way down to the floor. Plant both feet hips width apart. And pause here for a moment, maybe 1 or 2 rounds of breath. Closing the eyes, just take an inventory. So closing the eyes helps turn your attention inward, especially now we're sort of hyper focusing on areas of the hips and the legs, pelvis. Notice where the breath is, and notice if there's a difference in sensation between the left and right leg or the hip. Good. These periods of rest are really important so we're able to gather that feedback, really biofeedback from the body. Okay. With your next inhale, slowly hug the left knee in. Exhaling out the mouth. Anytime you need to release some hot air, deeply inhale into the belly, rib cage, upper chest. Exhaling back through your chest, rib cage, gently contracting the abdomen, grounding down evenly through your lower back. And slowly begin to straighten the right leg, flexing the right toes back towards you. Now sending your breath to the right hip flexor, the front side of the pelvis, the inner thigh. And as you continue to breathe, you can begin to make small circles with the left knee. Going in one direction, in the opposite direction. You might even notice how this really subtle movement of the left knee kind of affects the stretch on the right side, that right hip flexor. Continue to breathe and go in the opposite direction, small circles. And lubricating that hip joint. So we're doing all these kind of non-weight bearing movements and postures. And then as you're ready, inhale to straighten or just extend your left leg up towards the sky. Flex the foot back, keeping as much of a bend in your knee as possible. Just really honoring the body and where it naturally meets resistance. Pause there and breathe into it. So we honor that edge. Use your breath, driving more energy into the leg. Point and flex the foot a few times. Moving some synovial fluid through these smaller bones and joints. Then rotate the ankle around one direction and the opposite direction. Breathing deep into your belly, into your ribs, to your heart. Breathing fully out in reverse. When you're ready, nice and slow, rebend the knee. With an exhale, lower the foot to the floor and step both feet hips width apart. Pausing here for rest and observation. Reestablish your breath. The breath has more space. So here in a supine position, whenever you're on the back side lying down, there's a little bit more room for this breath practice. Really exaggerate that expansion of belly, ribs, and chest as you inhale. And soften, releasing that breath out in reverse with every exhale. One more round of deep breath. Letting the hips get heavy on your block or on the blanket. And then with your next inhale, lift the hips up. Remove your block or blanket off to the side and keep breathing here, lifting the hips. Lengthen the thighs forward, grounding down through all four corners of your feet. Tuck the tailbone in. One more breath. And as you exhale nice and slow with control, lower all the way down. Good. Separate the feet wider than your hips, as wide as your mat if you have a mat, or even wider if it feels good. Deeply inhale into the belly, rib cage, upper chest. And with an exhale, lower the knees over to the left. Pausing here for a couple of rounds of breath. Breathing into the right hip flexor, the thigh. If there's any knee pain on that right side, you can always sort of straighten out the right leg a little bit more. You'll still benefit from a nice stretch here across the psoas muscle, the hip flexor on the right side. Just one more deep round of breath. And at the end of your exhale, pull your belly button in and turn the knees back to center. And just relax. Take an inhale into the pelvis, ribs, chest. Exhale it out in reverse. And lower the knees to the opposite side. And breathing to and from the left side of your pelvis. Visualize your breath as this vehicle that's just carrying new forms of energy into the space that you're stretching and releasing any stale toxins or depleted energy from your system. And again, if you need to modify, if there's any knee discomfort, you can always straighten out that left leg a little, back off. One more round of breath here. At the end of your exhale, engage your abdominals by pulling the navel in. Lift the knees back to center. Plant your feet. Keep breathing and just walk the feet back in. Bring the feet to touch. Squeeze the inner thighs together. And gently rock the legs left to right. Just a small rocking movement. Stay evenly grounded down through your lower back. Good. There's a little muscular effort keeping the thighs together. Yeah, so breathe here. One more round of breath. Kind of releasing and relaxing the lower back, the hips. Good. And then come to neutral. Exhale it out. Good. And very, very slowly hug your knees in. Take an inhale in through the nose. And exhale out through your mouth. Slowly roll over all the way onto your stomach, onto your belly. Now you're going to set up for some myofascial release on the hip flexors. Everyone's favorite, I know. So that's why we have some ball options. If you have a kid's inflatable ball, please use it. If you have a single tennis ball, that's the second option. And of course, your noodle is the third. But we're going to start right to the inside of the hip bone. But in actuality, it's your anterior sacroiliac spine. You can palpate right there and feel the edge of that pelvic wall. Put your ball just at the top to the inside of that bone. It's the ilium bone. Prop yourself up on your forearms and square your hips directly on top. Do the best you can to allow gravity draw you down on top of the ball. If you are using your noodle, you can absolutely do that too. And you might just tuck two of the balls from your noodle in towards the top there. Then we'll work our way down. So you will feel pressure and sensation. And just remember, you can back off or reposition the ball as needed. You do want to feel sensation, and it's not comfortable, I know. Let your breath guide your positioning and guide this practice. So if you feel that you're holding your breath or it becomes kind of choppy or uneven, then reposition. Find a place where you can feel that expansion of your abdomen and rib cage as you inhale, and release it out in reverse fully as you exhale, softening the hips, the legs. Good. If it feels right, you can relax your head down onto your hands and just rest and begin to self-massage the ball in by slowly rocking the hips to the left and to the right. Very small movement and slow as well. The slower, the better. And we'll take about 5 rounds of breath here before moving the ball down. Stay with your breath. Do the best you can to surrender to this experience of sensation in this very moment. And detach from any judgments or attachments to whatever the mind is trying to label the feeling, what it feels like. And the mind is quick to do that. The mind is quick to judge, but allow your awareness Just kind of override the mind and let yourself become a witness to the experience. And the breath is a great tool to help keep you focused and centered. Couple more rounds here. Maybe that inner movement of breath is all the movement that you need today. At the end of your next exhale, you can open the mouth and release any of that stale energy, any congestion coming out with a vocal ha or a hmm. Be really helpful. Just letting go. And then if you are ready, you can just use your hand to move the ball down. We're still tracking just to the inside of that ilium bone, the pelvic wall. You move it down like a half an inch. Come back to the forearms. And if you're not feeling enough, I just encourage you to continue looking and exploring for an area where you are going to feel an area of tension that needs a release. Letting your breath, of course, determine where that edge is for you. And that edge is a place between exploration and surrender. If you want to stay lowered down, resting the cheek on the back of your hands, you can. And maybe the body has already begun some gentle rocking left to right, exploring sensation with these kind of soothing, coaxing self-massage movements. 5 more rounds of breath here. Just stay with it, whatever it is that surfaces in the body and the mind or the heart. It's a very intense area here. We're targeting the psoas muscle group that connects with the lumbar spine, and it goes through the pelvis to attach at the inner upper thigh bones. It's a pretty big muscle. Its primarily role is to support and stabilize the spine. And then secondly, it obviously provides movement to the legs. It's also very significantly connected to our stress response, that fear response of our nervous system that is constantly turned on. So notice any tension here. Do the best you can to let it go with your breath. Tension can be from stress or other accumulated contributing factors like postural habits, sitting for too long, any injuries that create imbalances in the pelvis. With your last exhale, just go slow to slowly move the ball down. And so now it's going to be right in between the groin and that crease of your inner thigh. It's pretty intense, I know. So be mindful. Back off if you need to. Or reposition the ball. And you can obviously come back on your forearms. Offer yourself some stillness and breathe. And there's a smaller muscle called the iliopsoas that lies deep within this muscle group, more towards the groin. It's a little trickier and kind of awkward to target, but you'll know when you're there. You might even feel an immediate sensation of tingling down your leg or heat or numbness because this muscle, this tissue, and this muscle uh, is known as one of my teachers, who is a healer, calls our fear muscle, this tiny little iliopsoas muscle, directly connected to our fears. And so it's activated, it contracts when the mind sends messages of stress related to fear and any other emotions that are rooted in fear, maybe anger or frustration, to this part of the body. And of course, if that contraction isn't released and our emotions aren't processed right away, the tissue starts to stick together. So it accumulates and contributes to the congestion, blocks energy and blood and water from moving into the hips, into the legs, even into the lower back. So what you might be feeling in the legs or hips is energy immediately moving in. Take just a few more breaths here. Whether you're moving the hips left to right, moving the leg, you're in the right place, as long as you're with your breath. And then, your next exhale, I'm going to slowly kind of back off to the ball and move it now into the thigh. So you're going to move it into the upper thigh, targeting the top of the quadricep muscle, right in the center. And if it's not directly in the center of your thigh, once you position your hips over, you can always play around with it. It might feel really good to move the ball towards the inner thigh. So explore the top of your quadricep there to find a point, a position that offers you a lot of feedback and a lot of sensation. So you might not even be able to see my ball because I'm using a tennis ball and it's really small. But it's there, believe me. And you'll know when you feel some intensity that you're in the right place. Come to your breath. There is an inner thigh muscle that is connected to the psoas, the muscles we just opened up. It's more towards the inner thigh and it connects all the way to the kneecap. So that might feel really good, just applying some pressure, maybe not even moving at all, to that inner quad muscle. And breathe. Breathing into the entire leg on that side, in from the sole of the foot to the calves, knees, thighs. And breathing it back out in reverse. So using your exhales as an opportunity to just let go of all the sensations or feelings, congestion stuck here. Letting them go in this moment. If they're not going to serve you, they can be processed and released. A couple more breaths. Good. In the next position, just do one more position. Just shift yourself off of the ball. Turn to the side a little bit. Grab your ball, and then bend the knee. So I'm on my right leg. So I'm just bending the knee, my right knee out. And I'm going to place the ball right to the inside. So I'm still tracking along sort of the inner thigh, towards the top of the quad, but closer to the knee now. And I'm going to set it up. I'm still going to use my body weight, coming back to my forearms, relaxing the leg, and just breathe and just pause. So I already found a pretty intense area, and it does get very intense by the knee. If you want to cover the ball, as I think most of you know, with a thin layer of blanket, please do so. But that's again why these nice little toy balls are really great, because they're softer when we're working these big muscles of the thighs. Just keep that in mind. So we're here, down towards the knee, the inner quadriceps. Breathe here. And we'll stay here for about 5 to 8 more rounds of breath. And maybe you want to explore a little movement. You can slowly shift the hips left to right. Or maybe you're just moving the leg a little bit. Small movements. Up, down, moving the foot out, moving it in, whatever it is, you're in the right place as long as you're with your breath and all the sensations of this moment. You can even kind of balance your leg if you want to roll the ball right on to the center of your quadriceps. It really doesn't take much to release and free the knee and the thigh of this resistance. Anything that you're feeling right now could possibly be a tension pattern pulling on the knee or affecting this side of the leg and hip. If you found a knot, an intense bunch of tissue that's sticking together, pause there and just breathe into it. Couple more breaths wherever you are. Exhaling out through the mouth. The ha or letting it all go. With your last breath, last exhale, remove the ball off to the side and just pause for a moment. Maybe rest your cheek down on your hand. Observe sensation between the left and the right side of the legs, the hips, and even the lower back. Just get heavy and notice what you notice. Deeply inhale, expanding the belly, the ribs, chest, and then exhale it out in reverse. Lift yourself up, and we'll move to the other side. So I'm just going to shift around. I'm working my left side, but whatever side you're on, remember, I'm going to start right at the top of that pelvic wall. So you can palpate with your fingers where you feel the top of the bony ilium bone, whether you're using a tennis ball or your noodle. Come to your forearms, position the hips squared directly on top. The tendency is we sort of lean to one, to the opposite side, so there's not a lot of compression. That's just our automatic instinct, right? To not feel pain or discomfort. But I encourage you to square your hips directly over, feel the sensation as is, and then recognize the quality of your breath. If it's not deep and fluid, then you can reposition the ball or cover it with a blanket. So you can stay directly on top and experience all that this body has to offer you right now in the form of sensory feedback. And remember, this fascia tissue has billions of sensory nerve endings in them, more than our skin does. So that's why there's a lot going on with this type of practice. Just like when you go and get a massage, it's the same concept, except now you can control this experience. You'll notice eventually the body starts to move organically how it wants to move. The hips start to sway back and forth or up and down, exploring sensation and release. Or maybe the body doesn't want to move at all. Allow that inner expansion of your breath to provide enough movement and transferring of energy, and that could be enough today. Moving oxygen-rich blood in to this hip flexor, the psoas muscle. Good. Let's take about 3 or 4 more rounds of breath before we move on. With your next exhale, lower the ball. And if you haven't already, sort of still tracking that ilium bone on the side. But now it's just about a half inch to an inch lower. Square the hips back directly on top. So use your forearms first to help position yourself. Find your breath. Good. Exploring movement if that feels right, or even just resting your cheek on the backside of the hands. Breathing with your whole body. Even taking a moment to just check in if there's parts of the body that are still kind of resisting, clenching, or grasping. You can send your breath there to release and relax those muscles so that they may invite more energy in. Let me take about 5 more rounds of breath. Good. Getting heavier and heavier. You may feel the support of the ground. Almost embracing this posture, this body. This is part of the energy system, this root chakra. Chakra just means energy vortex or wheel, which is located at the base of the spine. It correlates with this muscle group, with the hips, the legs, corresponds with all of the energy that we experience from our outside world, from our inner world, that relates to survival or instincts to be stable and secure. But when our survival is threatened, this part of the body may become imbalanced. Imbalance in the sense that one side or the other begins to hold on to certain stresses, insecurities, fears, all of which can contribute to tension patterns. If you haven't already, move the noodle or your single ball down, targeting now the iliopsoas, in between the groin and the crease of your inner thigh, the most awkward yet intense area of myofascial release that I've come to know, but also one of the most beneficial, especially if you are experiencing hip or lower back pain. This is an important release here in the psoas muscle group. When this muscle is congested, it will shorten, it'll start to pull on the spine and on your pelvis. And that induces like a skeletal and muscular imbalance that could ride all the way down into your knee and leg, or it can ride up to that side of your back, shoulder, keeping this muscle group hydrated, buoyant, open is key to relieving any of that pain or discomforts in your lower back and your hips and your knees. So those parts that are more closely located to this muscle. 5 more rounds of breath wherever you are. Stay with it. Letting go, whatever is stuck here. Releasing and surrendering body and mind. Letting the mind just take a back seat. Sitting back into your awareness. Deeply inhale into your belly, ribs, upper chest. Exhale it out, maybe out through your mouth. Let it go. One more full body inhale. Opening the mouth. That feels good. Just let it go. Move the ball now into the quadriceps. So either the center of your quad, just to the top of your thigh, or maybe you're positioning the ball slightly towards the inner thigh. Still at the top here. Might help to come onto your forearms if you're not already there. Position your hips directly on top. Evenly square those hips on top so your entire body is bearing weight onto the ball. And breathe. And it's optional if you haven't already to explore movement across the top of your quadriceps. Remember, back off of anything that doesn't feel right. Use your breath as your true teacher. More important to me that you maintain this 3-part deep breathing than, finding the most painful or discomfort. The breath is key. Sometimes you might not feel a whole lot, but you're still hydrating that tissue, flushing in water and blood. So healthy fascia is like a sponge. It will quickly absorb and release energy. And that's why this is a wonderful preventative practice. So even if you're not experiencing pain anywhere, you can always keep this tissue fully elastic, fully hydrated. So that will create, optimal range of motion and flexibility in the body. Joints will feel good. Energy levels will be high. And then the mind responds to that in a very joyful, content way, right? When we feel good, everything responds. We'll take in a couple more breaths here, and then we'll move the ball down towards the knee. Good. Just take your time. You're going to come off of the ball, kind of turn your body towards the side, and use your hand to position it under the inside of the knee. So still targeting the quadricep, just that inner muscle, which connects to the kneecap. And it could be pretty intense, and this side might be different. So remember, just be mindful, honor any limitations, cover the ball with a blanket if you need to. So let's be here for a good 5 to 8 rounds of breath. Stay on your forearms for more support. Or if there's too much strain on your shoulders or your arms, you can always lower down and just rest your cheek. So it's up to you. There's no wrong or right, as long as you're with your breath. Good. And it doesn't take much. You can be still here with the inner movement and expansion of your breath, or explore physical movement, shifting your hips left or right, or even just isolating movements in that leg to self-massage that ball up and down, maybe in small circles. This is your exploration. Allow your body to move and go where it wants to. Good. Just a few more rounds of deep 3-part breath. Remember, really breathe in to the abdomen first, the ribs and the upper chest, and then breathe it out in reverse, back through the chest, the ribs, and the abdomen. You got it. Couple more breaths here. With your next exhale, remove the ball off to the side or just roll it away and relax on your belly. Relax everything. Rest your cheek to your hands and close the eyes and just notice. Taking inventory of what the left side and the right side of the legs, the hips, the back feel like. And then very slowly bend the right knee. You can rest your forehead to the back side of your hand. And then with an inhale, lift the right knee away from the floor. Hold it here and continue to breathe. Good. One more inhale, lifting the heel up towards the ceiling. And then exhale, release it down. As you inhale, bend the left knee and lift away from the floor. Continue to breathe. Good. One more inhale, perhaps lifting a little higher. Press the heel up towards the ceiling. And then exhale, release. Good. Wiggle the hips left to right. And slide your hands under the shoulders. Spread the fingers wide. Hug the elbows in. Just lift your head, look down at the floor. I'm moving into just a baby cobra pose. With an inhale, lift your nose, your chin, lift the chest, press down through the hands, and squeeze the elbows in towards the ribs. Feel as if the center of your heart continues to lift up towards the sky. Draw the shoulders down. You got it. One more deep breath. And then release. Exhale. Shift your hips back into a child's pose. Go slow. Separate the knees as wide as your mat or wider than your hips. And rest the forehead down, arms out in front of you. And rest. Breathing in through the tailbone, all the way in through the low back, mid back, upper back. Breathing out in reverse. Let that breath flow all the way back down the spine, out through the tailbone. Good. The deeper your inhales are here in a child's pose, the more elasticity, the more stretch you'll receive across your upper back. And even within the back spaces of your heart. Exhales, softening, just letting go. One more breath here. Now bring the hands in. Good. For our final pose today, just check me out. I always encourage you to use a blanket. And if you have, especially because if you're on a hard floor, you can use two blankets, one under each knee. It's called frog's pose. So I might just use one blanket because I don't know where my other one is. Yeah, I'm going to spread it out nice and wide. Plus I'm on a carpet, so it's pretty soft already. So either one wide blanket or two, one under each knee. Take your time. Come into tabletop. Shoulders over the elbows, hips over the knees, and the knees are about hips width apart. Okay. I'm going to go really, really slow here. And eventually, you start to inch your knees wider than your hips, wider and wider. So we're separating the knees as wide as it feels right, using the arms and the hands to support you. Okay. And then flex your feet. When you've reached your limit, knees are nice and wide. The knees are kind of still in line with your ankle. You can peek at your alignment, make sure the knee and the ankle are aligned, then flex your feet. And if it feels right, and you're more than welcome to stay here. However, if it feels right, you can lower onto the forearms. Bring the forearms parallel aligning the shoulders over the forearms. And going slow, whether you're on your forearms or you're on your hands, just continue to breathe and slowly shift the hips forward and back. Keep breathing, forward and back. You got it. It can be very, very small movement. And then come to a neutral position. Once again, shoulders over the elbows, or if you're on your hands, shoulder over the wrist. If you have room to go, scoot or just slide your feet outward a little bit more, and maybe scoot and slide the knees outward a little bit more. Continue to breathe. And then again, shift the hips slightly forward and then back. Small movements, forward and back. If there's any knee pain at all, please back off, right? Breathing into those inner thighs, pelvis, belly, ribs, chest. Good. And then come back to neutral to find some stillness here. If it feels right, shift your hips slightly back and just pause. Keep breathing. Just a couple more breaths here. You might feel the inner thigh muscles engage a little bit. Exploring the stretch down through the inside of the knee, basically where we just worked the ball into. And then exhale, release, come back to neutral. If you are on your forearms, lift back up. Take your time to scoot the feet back in, scoot the knees back in. Good. And then gently find a seat. Go slow, because this transition is just as important. All of our transitions between poses are really important too. So stuff's moving around, energy's moving. Straighten your legs, shake them out a little bit. Good. Bring the palms to the heart center. You can just relax your legs. Inhale, extend the arms above your head, stretch through the sides of your body. As you exhale, lower the left arm, take a gentle side bend. With your next in-breath, come back to center, reach up, and then exhale over to the right, side bend. And then inhale back to center. And exhale the palms down to your heart. Now bend the knees. If it feels good, walk the hands forward. Tilt from or hinge from your hip joint. Forward fold. Tuck the head down. Breathe into the back space of your neck. Keep your spine neutral, so flat back. Again, all these folds, all the folding positions that yoga has to offer, really helps to turn attention inward, also connecting with inner sense of body and sensation. Folding it inward, embracing the body, the heart. And then slowly with your next inhale, look up. Walk the hands back in. Lift up through the heart. Grow tall through your spine. If it feels right, you can cross the legs and bring the palms to your heart, bowing the head in our gesture of gratitude and honor for this journey. And thank you all for sharing your own unique healing journeys with me tonight. I bow to the